You cannot say, hey, I'm going to now change the function of your property and you can no longer use it for that. You now have to get a 6 to 12 month lease. Do you realize how much income those people are going to lose? And then what happens? You're going to go into foreclosures and you're going to deal with that. Then your values come down. It's just the wrong thing to do, in my opinion.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Shawn and Matt Show. My name is Matt. That is Shawn, and welcome to our show. Shawn, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about canceling 95% of Airbnbs in a certain city, whether they should do that and whether other cities should follow along. We're going to be talking about HOAs and license plate readers and the legality of automatic license plate readers on citizens in private roads of private property on HOAs, and if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And we'll try to keep that discussion succinct as there's, opening up the wormhole. Is that the right expression?
I mean, whatever. Opening up. Yeah, this is these are
can of worms.
These are
opening
hot
up
topics.
a can of worms in terms of automatic license plate readers. And then we're also going to get into 3 properties, whether Shawn battles in or out on 3 properties. 2 of them are in Boston, Massachusetts.
Boston, Mass. All right, cool.
So let's get into an article from Fox 4 in Texas. Dallas proposal would eliminate 95% of Airbnb Vrbo-type rentals in the city, staff says. So Shawn, essentially what this article is saying and what these new proposals would do would eliminate Airbnbs, short-term rentals in parts of the downtown area, and it would eliminate Airbnbs in residential districts. So you want to have an Airbnb, you can have it in a commercial district, but if you want to live in a residential area, then you are not allowed to run a hotel, a short-term hotel out of your own house. And if this were to pass, this would eliminate 95% of the rentals in the city. They would now be illegal. So Shawn, what are your thoughts on a city proposing to drastically change short-term rental regulations that would eliminate the possibility of doing a short-term rental in a residential area?
Man, okay. I completely understand why they would want to do this because, if it was next to me and there was parties all the time, I would get frustrated and I'd be like, what can I do to stop this? So I completely understand it. But what we have to remember is that these people purchase properties maybe for that reason only. They were looking at a profitability kind of thing. And, you and I have looked at Airbnbs. You own an Airbnb. Just think if this happened to you. And so when a government says, all right, we're changing our rules and you can no longer do this, and all of these people have already purchased the place for that reason, that is, I mean, communist. It's like, listen, how are you going to restrict us next? And they're allowed to rent them. They bought these places because they're allowed to rent them. There was no stipulation. I think that maybe if they do this, they should say, all right, going forward, you can no longer purchase one. We have record of who the Airbnb people are, and you're grandfathered in. But going forward, you can no longer purchase these as. You cannot say, hey, I'm going to now change the function of your property, and you can no longer use it for that. You now have to get a 6 to 12 month lease. Do you realize how much income those people are going to lose? And then what happens? You're going to go into foreclosures and you're going to deal with that. Then your values come down. It's just the wrong thing to do, in my opinion. Like I said, maybe grandfather it if you really feel strongly about that. But I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
The frustration lies in safety, in parties, and in affordability. Because when you take residential neighborhoods and you can go to insert any city, you can go to Scottsdale, you can go to Houston, you can go to Philadelphia, you can look at certain neighborhoods that are very desirable, and you can just see that different houses have been gobbled up by the short-term rental market, and they are no longer available for someone moving in to purchase into the neighborhood. They're no longer available for someone looking to rent in the neighborhood. There's certain ordinances and certain regulations that you can put on these types of properties. Like I believe in Joshua Tree, they have something like, I don't think they're giving out any more short-term rentals, but they're saying you can't have a short-term rental within 100 yards or 100 feet or 1,000 feet, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So the question then is, what is the government's role? What are they allowed to tell you to do with your property? Because just like you wouldn't want, maybe an Airbnb next to you, you wouldn't want someone running a full-fledged business that's not zoned and regulated right next to you. So you can say, hey, government's not allowed to tell me what to do with my property. That's all fun. But when your neighbor decides to, run a go-karting business in their backyard, or an unpermitted daycare, or park a commercial food truck right next to your house, then you're going to start calling the city and get the government involved.
Sure. And the thing is, those have already been in place. That's the key, right? So those types of things like, hey, you can't run a business next to it. Those are for business districts. That's already in place. Where this is, it's like shading that area, right? There's rentals, which are a business, that's still a business. And then there's Airbnbs, which is a cycling business. It's a weekly or daily business. So it's still the same thing as a rental, but it's not a commercial type business that people are frequenting to go and buy something. So those are already in place. What gets me is that they're changing this and changing the rental aspects. Now, I completely get it, because Airbnb has changed everything about our society. And Airbnbs are huge in beach towns and things like that. And even people in beach towns are like, well, I'm going to go to this private community where they don't allow it, where HOAs are. And that's where it's good to live in an HOA, because they have these restrictions. I used to live in Lake Barcroft. There was one that was an Airbnb. The HOA said, nope, we're not going to deal with it anymore because it was loud and it was partying. And I completely get it. An HOA has that power. A city has police power. They can do things like that, but they have to give value. So if they change something like that, the lawsuit would be, well, you're changing the way that my property can provide income to my family. So it's almost like you're taking it over. Like, I can't remember the actual caveat emptor or something like that, right? So you're basically taking my rights away that I have right now. So then you need to pay me a fair market value for this house if you're going to do that, and then you can do it and sell it on your own, right? I mean, that's what it's coming down to, and I think that's where a lawsuit is going to start kicking.
Are cities and jurisdictions allowed to change their zoning regulations?
Sure, if it's voted on, right?
Okay, so
and just like they're doing in Arlington.
If it's voted on and it's approved, then what's the issue?
The issue is that these people own a property that they're currently using for a certain type of use.
Well, then it becomes, is this unconstitutional?
That's where the big issue is. I mean, I'm no lawyer, so I don't know what the laws are in these cities, right? But I think it's crap.
Not a good place to learn about constitutional rights. No. The Shawn and Matt show. There's better resources.
Go somewhere else for that.
Better resources.
We're talking about, lighting fires under people's butts because, they're pissed because, they're changing the law. They're changing what you can use your property for. Just imagine if, like, you had a business and you were running a haircuttery out in Ballston, and all of a sudden they said, you know what? We're changing this. You can no longer do it. And hey, you're stuck with the rent. Should go figure it out. Now that's basically what they're doing. So, like, I would say the right way to do it is to grandfather, leave them go. There's 1,700 of them. There's nothing you can do about it right now, unless you're going to pay them fair market value. If you're not going to pay them fair market value, then you got to let them go. Going forward, no more Airbnbs. That's the way I would do it. I think that's fair. It's unfortunate for the people that have to live next to it. I get it. I wouldn't want to live next to it either. But changing the way that people use their property after the fact is the problem.
I saw a thread on Twitter where someone's neighbor was running an illegal Airbnb, And so they called the county on him, and they stopped running the Airbnb, and the neighbor turned it into a halfway house, and there was some illicit drug activity happening. So you really want to pick and choose your battles on what type of property is operating next door.
Yeah, you piss off the wrong person and they got money and they don't really care. They're gonna treat that property worse than you expected. And now where are you? It's like I wish I had that Airbnb back. Yeah, right. I mean,
but we're also seeing cities take back their regulations on Airbnbs, because clearly we've seen the Airbnb boom in 2020 and 2021, and some would say it's coming to an end. Now, does Dallas need 1,700 Airbnb rentals? Does Philly, Houston, New York City, has thousands of illegal rentals? If you're going to Joshua Tree, if you're going to the Smoky Mountains, if you're going to a national park, I understand the lure of, having an Airbnb and a short-term rental. But if you're just, buying, you're saying, what are people going to do? If you're just buying a single-family house in Dallas to rent out on Airbnb, I don't feel sorry for you if the rules change.
What if they did that down in Southern Virginia or like Middle Virginia, where you know what I mean?
I would turn it into a medium term or a long term rental. I would go to the county meetings. I'd probably hate it. Yeah. And then I'd turn it into a medium or long term rental.
Here's another possible solution. And I know this is government giving money, but I mean, this might be a solution, right? So I think we talked about this on a different on a different show, where the government was saying, all right, we're no longer allowing you to do an Airbnb. Show us your numbers. Show us what the fair market value is for a 12-month lease. What are your numbers here? And we'll subsidize for a term, right? The city will subsidize for a term until, from say 2 years or whatever, until things kind of level out, and then no longer, right? So at least there's a period there where you're like, all right, I'm getting subsidized because I'm offering this. And there was a city that was saying, hey, there's too many Airbnbs in this city. Do you remember which city it was?
I don't.
And there was too many Airbnbs. So the city was like, hey, we're going to give you X amount of dollars so that you turn this into a regular leasing property for 12 or 6 months, because the prices had gone up, right? So there was scarcity in the market, which always causes prices to go up. So they were like, well, we no longer have viable properties for the city workers to live in because it's too expensive, because Airbnbs were taking over the market. And so I think that might be a viable option. I think there are a lot of things that you can do there. I gave 2 on this show that you could do to alleviate the pain a little bit, and then going forward, no longer allow them. I understand the pain, but hey, there's ways to go around this civilly, and let's find a way for everybody to move forward that will be happy.
I think I have 2 kind of closing thoughts, if you will. Number one, I'm very pessimistic on Airbnbs being successful in cities, competing 1-to-1 against hotels. And number 2, if there's 1,700 Airbnbs in Dallas, I think that's too many. But if there's that many, then clearly they're either wildly successful or they're going to run out of money and have to no longer be an Airbnb, and it'll sort of solve its own problem. But clearly, there's going to be some government regulations involved to solve said problem.
Yeah, and there's one good reason to live in a condo or an HOA, because they frown upon that, most of them. And there were a lot that we have clients always looking for, hey, I want to buy a condo that I can Airbnb. And I'm like, good luck, because I don't know that they exist, right? So,
all right. Well, one other note on this, and I promise we'll move on to the next topic. But on the flip side, we're talking about Airbnbs in cities. Airbnbs in vacation markets where there are stringent regulations. The houses that come up for sale in vacation rental markets where you're not allowed to Airbnb are worth significantly less than the houses where you have more flexibility and more uses other than a single family use, where you could do single family, you could do investment property, you could do Airbnb. Those houses sell for a lot more.
100%. If you look, actually, a friend of mine bought in Sarasota, and there's marks of where you can rent these as weekly rentals and where they don't rent as weekly rentals. And guess what? In that weekly rental area, man, they are busting. The values are way higher, way higher. So this is another thing. When you limit people to what they can do, values tend to come down. So be careful on what you wish for.
Let's move on to our next topic. This comes to us from The Intercept. License plate surveillance, courtesy of your homeowners association. Flock Safety works with police to market scanners to hundreds of private community groups which have no privacy safeguards. Shawn, I almost don't know where to start with this. It's such a fascinating, scary topic to talk about something like this. But the gist of it is there's a company called Flock Safety that will install license plate readers on private property. So when I say private property, think gated HOA communities. Think of areas in your county, town, city where it's not publicly accessible. Maybe it's a gate, maybe it's a townhouse parking lot, maybe it's an HOA community area. These are areas that you essentially don't have the rights of public streets and public access. I hope I'm explaining this correctly. So there's a company out there that is marketing and selling hundreds and thousands of license plate readers to these HOAs, and all three, the police, the HOAs, and the license plate reader company Flock, they're all working together to help solve crimes, to automatically read license plates that are entering and exiting this HOA community that in Lakeway, Texas, outside of Austin is the example here. So, Shawn, my question to you before this gets too off the rails here is, if there is crime and if there is a concern for safety in an HOA, or a concern for cars parking in visitor spots and unauthorized visitors and property crime and criminal activity, this seems like it could be a possible solution. What are your thoughts on implementing automatic license plate readers in HOA communities to help combat crime?
Man, we're surveilled all the time, right? I mean, look at your cell phone, they're tracking you. Look at every way possible, all the apps on your phone, they're tracking you. Do you want to be tracked? This was the great thing about growing up in the 1980s. There was nothing like this. We could just run around. I never came home. Now it's like, we know where you are, when you're there. We can go back. You're on camera pretty much all the time, especially in a city. There's cameras everywhere. So when you get home and you're in your private community that you pay an association fee for, and the key here is they put up these cameras without notification and without talking about it within their HOA. From what I understand, reading the article quickly, it was they thought they put them up, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh yeah, did you realize that we have X amount of cameras? They were saying in one community they went up in the middle of the night like mushrooms. All of a sudden these cameras were in there, and now the private citizens of a private HOA are being surveilled. Now Flock then sells this to two people. They're worth billions, right? This Flock company.
$3.5 billion.
$3.5 billion. So what they do is they go after HOAs because there's a lot of money in the HOA pots, and they say, hey, we can surveil and make sure the crime doesn't happen. Boom. Then they're talking to the police at the same time, and then they're connecting the two illegally, basically. I mean, they're getting this information by saying, yeah, it's fine, but no one really knows that it's happening in this one particular community. So people were like, wait a second, you're watching me come and go into my private residence. Could you imagine if I had a surveillance system in my house and the police were using it against me, right? That's the basic thing that's happening here. And I think it's a far overreach. I'm a person that I like privacy when I want privacy. I don't want people watching me. That's just me. And I know people are watching me all the time, but in my own house, in my own community, I don't want that.
The article goes into further detail about a couple other communities that have approved this service. So it's not just they're installing them without anyone ever noticing. But more so on the token of how, if there's an opportunity to make your community safer. Now, this is a system where they only read the back of the license plate, so they're not reading faces, they're not reading the front, they're not reading facial features or anything. Allegedly, and they're only storing the data for 30 days, allegedly. But I'm reading articles in the DC area where DC has almost $1 trillion or almost $1 billion. It was like 800. It wasn't a trillion. It was $800 million of unpaid parking tickets. Cars that are just driving around the street. Now, what Flock will tell you is that they're reading these license plates in real time. So imagine a scenario where a violent crime is committed with an automobile, and that automobile passes through a private HOA community on its getaway route. That is immediately pinged to an officer, and they can immediately locate where that car is going. Flock claims that private safety is privacy. A little Freudian slip there. Privacy is down, but safety is up. So they claim that safety is up. Crime is down like 70% on their website. So if there's a way to make things safer and we can do it in a secure way that doesn't get breached, that doesn't give away anyone's personal features, I mean, is this going to be the future of communities?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be the future, unfortunately. I don't think it's right. Why should everybody be surveilled because there's a few criminals, right? I mean, like, you're basically surveilling me, a non-criminal, not going to make crimes, but you're surveilling me. You have the opportunity to follow me and know exactly what I'm doing whenever I'm doing it. And that's what I don't want to happen. I think most of us are probably feeling the same way. I mean, are there huge crimes in Arlington right now? No. Do I need security cameras around? Well, I mean, we're not in a private HOA. So, I mean, I guess you're allowed to. But if I live in one of these, I don't want to be surveilled. I think that, there's a way to bring down crime, but is it by surveilling everybody, by going into everybody's rights? Or is it by, hey, let's be a little more responsible and go after the people and lock them up and put them in jail? I mean, these people, there's some people, unfortunately, that should be in jail. They're career criminals. And if you keep releasing them, then they're going to continue to create crime. So, I mean, I know it's a controversial topic, but it's the truth, right? So the same people are going to be committing those crimes. I don't think you surveil the good people of the HOA to get the one criminal that's probably going through the HOA or just trying to steal cars out of that HOA. Why are you surveilling the people inside, right? I mean, like, that's my thing.
I wonder how much crime is being committed inside of an HOA. I got to imagine it's not much.
Right. Because, you've got to go through a gate. Your gate guards are there. They're going to know who you are. You have to go through it. So, I mean, like, why are you then, I mean, I could understand if there's crime in there and the HOA says, hey, listen, we need a solution. Let's talk about this on how we can try to alleviate the crime.
All right. Well, let me ask another question, and I hope this kind of stays on topic. But recently in DC, there was a car accident where two people lost their lives, and the person who drove the car into the other car had $14,000 of unpaid parking tickets.
I saw that.
$14,000. So what if the license plate reader could ping them at a certain area, and then that car could be impounded?
Well, that's 100%. If you have $14,000 of unpaid traffic tickets and you're not in jail, and that is something that that should make everybody mad. The fact that two people died because you didn't do your job and take somebody off the street that should have been off the street. You have $14,000 of unpaid traffic tickets. What are his offenses? What are that person's offenses? Why weren't they taken off the street? Now we're seeing that the two people are dead. That sucks, and it's just like really unfortunate. So on the other hand, though, all right, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it comes down to manpower, because it's if this person with $14,000 of parking, like you have to drive like in front of a police officer. And then hopefully that police officer doesn't have anything more important going on than chasing someone down that has a couple speeding tickets. What if there's an easier way where there's a system that can immediately ping the license plate of a location, and then you can go about it that way as opposed to this guessing game?
You know what that system is? It's called the license plate is registered to an address, and you go to that address and you arrest the person at their house before they are able to go out and drive again. They should have been arrested and taken in. I don't know what their offenses were. If it's parking tickets, that's one thing, but it seems like it was speeding and everything else, reckless driving, blah, blah, blah. Then you need to take care of these people, right? Take their license away for a little bit. I don't know if that'll do it, because they're probably going to just jump in a car and, drive again. But, there's a fine line here. There's one instance where I agree. I think that cameras are good. There's another side that they're bad. And there are ways to Go after people that are breaking the law, and you should do it the way that it's out there. You knew that they had $14,000. There's records of it. They're in the system. Go after them. Go arrest them. Impound their car.
Getting back to the topic, isn't the whole point of a gated HOA when you roll up to the gate, you say, "Hey, I'm John. I'm here to see Joe," and then the person at the gate kind of writes that down?
100%, man.
Isn't that well? I mean, maybe this is going to replace the person at the gate, and you can save some money that way.
There you go. Maybe that's the way to do it. Save the money and automate everything. But I mean, that's a good point, right? You could do that, but again, you have to have HOA approval, and some of these people didn't, or they didn't know what they were getting into.
They didn't. They were in over their head.
Yeah,
I think this flock company is very convincing, so I think they can win over a couple HOA boards and kind of do their thing in the dark of the night. But I'm not necessarily in favor of this, but I can see into the future a little bit, and I think we're going to start seeing more and more of these things pop up.
Yeah, and going back to like traffic and like in DC, I'll tell you what, almost every time, I rarely drive into DC anymore because the last couple of times I've gone, like we went to Topgolf that one time in Maryland, so I went through DC, ticket. The thing about DC is you don't know you're getting a ticket because it's just a camera that shoots your license plate, said, "Oh, you went 35 and a 25, here's a $150 ticket." You don't know until 30 days later. So if you're taking that same route a couple times, boom, 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 you're getting hit every time. There you're adding up. And that is where I think that things go a little bit wrong. If you catch me speeding, you should let me know that I'm speeding so I know how to correct it, right? I mean, I know, okay, you should be following the speed limit, but face it, most of us don't go exactly or under the speed limit. And so when a camera is tinging you or getting you for going over the speed limit and you don't know it, then I see a problem with it.
Well, people slow down when they see the sign that says speed camera
they
ahead.
do,
Then
but
they speed up after the...
Well, that's exactly it. Yeah. Camera. When people know they're there, they're going to slow that for that block and then they're gone again, So I don't know. It's tough. This is a tough situation. I'm trying to police people and trying to find the criminals and how do you do it and how do you keep your privacy?
Well, you're not going to like that DC is going to get 342 new traffic cameras starting this summer. So talk about policing and people knowing where you are.
Ride my bike.
All right, let's move on to in or out, whether Shawn battles in or out on 3 houses. Number 1 coming from Insider. Boston's skinniest home, which was built out of spite, sold for $1.25 million. Shawn, this is a 10-foot wide home in Boston that is 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, about 1,000 square feet on 4 levels, allegedly built in 1862 when a soldier returned from war to find his brother's house took up the rest of the shared land. So he built his house in between his brother's house to block the sunlight. So you have living and kitchen on 1 level. The top level is actually really cool because you get a view of the water, and then you also have kind of like an English garden in the back of the property. So Shawn, 1,000 square feet, 4 levels, $1.25 million in Boston, Massachusetts. Are you in or out on the spite home?
Love it. I'm in, Matt. 1, I'm in because of spite, right? Like, hey, somebody wrongs you, you get them back. Number 2, Boston prices are amazingly high. They just keep increasing in value. This is apparently in a good location. You can see the water, and it's cool inside. It's got exposed brick. Yeah, it's skinny, but sometimes, 100% I'm sold on this. I love it.
So if you had a budget of $1.25 million in Boston, it's this or a condo or maybe not much else.
Yeah, I like this. I think it's really neat. They were able to put a lot into it in the refined small space. It's, the thing is, I don't mind smaller places as long as you can utilize that space well. And if you can have an architect come in and put the beds in the right places and all that stuff, it can be really cool. And you realize you don't need as much space as you have. So I think it's all about location. And I think this place is pretty awesome, so I'm buying it.
I am in as well. I don't know how many dinner parties you're holding, but I think it's a really cool spot for maybe,
it's going to be outside dinner parties.
Yeah. Hey, there you go. That's a nice idea. So I am in on 444 Hull Street. So keeping in the Boston, Massachusetts area, let's take a look at an $18 million Cohasset estate. This property it has been listed before, closer to the $19 million range. It is a massive property that is right on the Sound. I believe that's the body of water, and it was once owned by the founder of Barron's Magazine. 10-bedroom property on a peninsula overlooking the Cohasset Harbor. Shawn, this is 49 Margin Street, right at the end of the road there. Are you in or are you out on the 20,000 square foot, 10-bedroom, 9-bathroom estate on the water?
If I had the money, I would buy this. I mean, it looks all right. Usually I'm not like a castle kind of looking person, but this thing is amazing. It does look like a castle. It looks very presidential.
Looks like a colonial, got the American flag, like a Revolutionary War type of castle.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a water person. I'm a boat person. They have a dock. They have a huge boat out there. I love it.
9 acres, 1,800 feet of ocean frontage, as well as a 112-foot deep dock area, so you can park your boat there. You know, some of the rivers in our area, they're not as navigable as maybe having 112 feet depth right there. So I'm definitely in on it as well. Something about waterfront in Boston in the summertime appeals to me. You know, I've never been to Boston before.
I have. Yeah, it's awesome.
When were you last in Boston?
Oh man, it was my band days. I played in a place in, I don't even know, behind the green wall. There was a club like
behind Fenway.
Yeah, right behind Fenway.
Okay,
it's pretty awesome.
My
buddy lives up in Boston. He loves it. He's from Pittsburgh. Moved there a long time ago. Loves it.
So,
I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking. I think I like the value of 1.25.
Me too.
For the Spite House.
Can I afford 18 million? No, but I mean, if I could, and I was going to Boston, this is something that I would buy for sure.
All right, let's go down to Charlotte, North Carolina. You know, do you know the nickname of Charlotte?
Off the top of my head, no.
Okay. Well, I think it's the same nickname as Cincinnati. I believe it is the Queen City. But then 2 different cities have the same nickname, so it's rather confusing. So we are taking a look at Christian McCaffrey's Charlotte, North Carolina penthouse for $3.75 million. Shawn, Christian McCaffrey, the star of the Carolina Panthers, was traded to the 49ers last year, and he is listing his penthouse. Are you in or out? I mean, $3.75 million in Charlotte, North Carolina. That's huge. A lot of money. Shawn, are you in or out on the 3.75 penthouse?
It looks, if I had 3.7 million and I'm buying in Charlotte and I want something cool and awesome, this is it. So I think I'm in on this. I mean, it looks gorgeous. Right, the picture that I can see, the only picture that I can see. So I'm buying a house on one picture.
Well, yeah, Architectural Digest keeps asking me to sign in. I've already signed in. I don't know how many times I need to sign in.
It's like 25-foot ceilings, huge windows, gorgeous.
I mean, do you really need to see more pictures? I'm
sold right there.
Look at this picture. You always talk in the MLS how you used to only have one picture. You put up one picture like this, and the property's going to sell.
Done. Yeah. No, it's gorgeous. I love it.
I'm always like confused when athletes buy houses and they don't have a family. Like there's a couple athletes in DC that buy houses that they just don't. It's like him and a girlfriend or him and like a wife. But if you're, an athlete, the penthouse condo is definitely the move. I am definitely in on 3.75 in Queen City.
100%.
So
beautiful.
Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below, whether you are in or out, and if you want to have your license plate automatically read when you're driving through your HOA. Maybe some hard feedback on that one. So thank you so much for watching. For Shawn and myself, until next time, take care.
Take care.